to the cloud, and then we go to live on, but we wait for, maybe because there is a delay. I don't know. I will call Jule. I hope you listen.
I'm here, I'm prepared.
But I send you, no, everything. I sent to Edyta and to Jule.
Yeah.
Did I send you also the link? I forgot to send it to Jule.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
It's my fault.
Don't worry.
Sorry.
Normally it's me who do this. So
I forgot. Sorry, I'm a disaster. I'm really chaotic. Okay.
Me too. But try to embrace it and value it. Like the creative power.
Exactly. We embrace it and we go.
But truth is, it's sometimes difficult to be selfish. So, yeah.
Wait, I'm gonna maybe to invite. You're right. Sometimes it's difficult.
So this will be on YouTube, yes? So
exactly.
we can
live. We can put in Facebook. Okay, let's write Jule. Okay, sending. Okay, I hope Jule will come. I'm a bit scared of going to YouTube without, without.
Yeah, but we can wait. Yes, it's not.
Let's wait if she's coming. Is something wrong? Jule is not here. Wait. Poor man. Yeah, no. Now we can go online. Okay.
Yeah, she's coming.
Okay, wait. Sorry, I forgot to send you the link.
Hi.
Are you okay, love?
Okay, do you hear me?
Ciao.
Okay, now I'm here. Sorry, I had
Ciao, Bella.
technical problems.
Oh, my love. Okay, we go now. Are you ready? And then we go online. We are delayed. It takes me a little bit. But let's see. Okay, then we go. Let's see. We go live.
Okay.
YouTube.
So serious.
Now serious. Very serious. We can have the serious. I always get so nervous with these things. Okay, go live. And then when YouTube is there, I have to. It's interesting. It's a very big delay. I just want to tell you. Okay. And okay. Then when YouTube is there, I have to. Perfect. Very embarrassing. They see me all. Okay. Okay. Hi. You have all seen me describing my way into the stream YouTube, which is always a very scary moment. I can welcome here Edyta. I practice the family name and Jarząb.
That's great.
Jule Flierl. Have I pronounced Flierl good?
Almost, yeah.
And Miss Veza Fernandez. I pronounce myself good. Okay. And we are here to talk about the voice and about its potentialities and about its magic, and also about the value of remaining silent, or the value of voicing in these times of confinement and surveillance of the voice. And I would like to start in a way that each of us presents a little bit what we work on, where we live, and why do we work on the voice, and a little definition of what is the voice, because I know it's a it's a complex word, and we will be talking about it on a personal level, on a political level, on an artistic level, on an acoustic level. So to just show that there are different definitions of this phenomenon, or of this corporeal matter that carries our words. Yeah, maybe Edyta, you want to start?
Yes, I can start. And what can I tell? What is the voice for me and for my practice, for my life? It is maybe an important part of my identity, and maybe the biggest focus for me it's in the matter of politics and public space, and this kind of let's say the bridge that is connecting both sides. If we are thinking that dualistically about the world, that there is something like private and public, so the voice will be this kind of bridge, because it's coming from the body and from my very private, let's say, world, and it's reaching the outside world, and it's the mean of communication, the mean of expression, the mean of like taking control, taking care of me and others. So yeah, the voice will be in the first place treated as a political phenomenon, as also voicing, as a stating something and defending some rights. And yeah, maybe the last 2 years were for me like focused on this. I attend a lot of protests. You can see me with the megaphone, maybe not, but I will tell you. Yeah, I will just show you this quick maybe drawing. So the voice in the middle. It's a kind of conglomeration of other phenomena. So it's like a biography, but also my life as a body, as an animal. So also it's a language, and it's the meaning, but also the acoustic quality. So as you said, like the voice is connecting so many different qualities, and I think in political thinking, not always recognized as such. I mean, it's very much recognized as a language and as a wisdom, but not very much as a delicate matter that can communicate delicate matters to even without language, like with the energy of it only. So yeah, I will yeah, not to talk too much.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can maybe bounce off from what you said, that it's like a private thing. For me, it's really also socially constructed how I learn to speak, and what language I'm speaking, and what control I have over the symbols, over the language that I'm using. And so I really find it super important in my practice to think about the words and the speech and the presence of speech and the politics of the speech, but then also the voice without speech and what that is. Because the logic behind it is very, very different, but it's still really political. And I'm still struggling with this also as a question. I don't like find the answer or something. And if I talk about my practice, it's because I come from dance, and in dance, at least in the European stage dance, it's a very mute art form. You shut up and you dance and you fulfill tasks, and the outside voice speaks to you what you should do. And maybe in modern dance, then we listen to our inner voice, but we still stay silent. And so my work is really about what is the role of the voice of the dancer, who is muted through education systems. Now, of course, in contemporary dance, there's a lot of discourse, maybe over discourse, maybe also so many words that it's again suffocating something else. And I'm trying in my performances to think about how voice can be dance, or how I can choreograph voice. And then there can be words, there can be no words, but how can I give the medium voice a space basically to be its own materiality and to not be in service of something. And yeah, and because I have worked a bit with like dance history basically, and one of my thesis that I really like that links it to politics is also in German language, we call it to give your voice, is when you vote. We say you give your voice. And that happened after the First World War in Germany, at least for women. And that was also the time when I did this project about Valeska Gerd, who developed sound dances also in the 20s, in the same time when women could vote the first time. So, and when the female voice in the public was also considered vulgar, really vulgar and not aesthetic and hysteric, basically. And that's a big fascination because it's a long time ago, but it's still a thing that other voice dancers or sound dancers are encountering now in conversations. We always come to this, the hysteric cliche of the female voice. So, yeah.
And I catch there with this hysteric because I work with this shameless, hyper emotional voice. I work with an inarticulated voice that really comes from the guts, or at least it feels like that. It's because I'm also a dancer and a choreographer. I find ways of finding negotiations between the body and the inside and the outside world in a way that the body is negotiate, because voice has always a direction. And I think that's so beautiful that gestures always have a direction. Voices go always to an ear. Voices pump against being stopped. Like they always know exactly where they go. And I work with this multi-directionality that works between the private body, the inside of the body, and the outside of the body, and how, while negotiating all these directions and all this entrail matter that is so vibrant and is so full of emotion, what dances and materialities happen in between. And I'm interested in that. I also think, because I also think that dance and sounding dances, if we follow the aesthetics of contemporary dance, it's very well behaved and always working in frequencies that we know. And I want to find also through my voice and my body places in the voice that are provoking and that go beyond it and move something. And I still struggle to understand also what is the politics of it. I read the other day that the voice in itself is not politic, it's in the relation. But I'm really fascinated by its emotionality, and I think that that's very important, and its materiality. And I don't know many other aspects or things that are so complex and at the same time so primal, and this friction interests me a lot. So we're gonna go, I would like to go to your practices and to think how the strategies you're using in your practice could have a transformative effect in society, or what are the politics you are developing in your practice? If you could go a little bit more detailed into that.
Okay, so maybe I start to
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that besides just the voice, no, I will start like this, that I'm really, if I think that the voice is a technology, and if I don't think the voice is authentic, expression of the self, which would be a very modernist way of thinking. And if I don't believe in the inherent synchronicity with myself all the time, I have developed a practice of desynchronizing basically the image of my body and the sound of my body. And that's a very nerdy dance coordination thing also, of really thinking, okay, this is the voice, my larynx, this is the articulation, and this is my facial expression, and they don't need to synchronize. So I'm doing different voluntricism. I have problems with this word, exercises. And what I just recently learned is actually also that we use the face expression in order to read also the emotions, what is the intention of the person in front of me. But also in film editing, we always look that the voice is synchronizing with the lip movement. And by desynchronizing the lip movement from the voice, I basically try in a live body that is not translated through video, through any medium, to desynchronize image and voice. And the political aspect of this is something about the self of not being inherently holistic. Yeah, of disbelieving in the body that makes sense to, I mean, probably not to itself anyway, but also doesn't have to make sense to others. And there's something in lying open, this, if like this performance field works on like, how can we represent different ideologies of body? This is an ideology of body that tries to, yeah, to really ask questions about like this body. It's not about a trick or something. It's more about the voice and how I look and what you project into me. They don't need to match. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm super like interested in what you just said, Jule, and I think it's there is a twist in your practice, like you're becoming somehow acousmatic voice yourself with your body. If I haven't seen what you mean, like about the desynchronization, but I can imagine it, and it sounds like you are there, but you also like breaking this continuity with your face and body. This is very amazing, I would say. Because yeah, in our culture, it's like, or okay, let's say civilization of the cities, of capitalism, of the civilization we are like identifying ourselves. It's very critical to the voice of women in the public space, and we all know that, and we all stated that. I start researching it, when it started, why it started, and because this really like impacts me, my daily life, my political life, my careers, my relationships. It's actually rooted somewhere with this misogyny of my tones. Actually, as a woman, I would probably have more soft voice, more higher voice. And as you said, also hysteria, it's also there. So let's read hysteria as expression of emotions, of expression of rage, also expression of frustration, like expression of all the things we are not allowed to express since we are not kids, let's say. So like 1,000 years ago in Babylon, it was like written law that if a woman speaks, not asked, you can take a brick and pull her teeth away from her mouth. So this kind of image of putting a person who is female into the private section as you said, because the female voice is connected with house and taking care and some kind of a private sphere. So when we are not allowed like speak publicly, and still even now there are some like incidents that female are silenced and the microphone is turned off, or we can hear like not really sympathetic comments just because we sound different. Like I don't know, the famous example will be Mary Bird, who is a historian and classic historian, and she wrote this book of woman and power, and showing this genesis of this misogyny of the voice from Homer, from ancient Greece. So now looking at Greta Thunberg and her speeches into the ecological movement, like I can see this is like let's say some kind of fresh thought, not so fresh, but from last month maybe. She's not also allowed to express what she wants to express freely. She's called like angry beach, you know. So this interests me how much the politics of the growth are stopping, like not allowing some expressions to be heard, and those are the messages of importance. They are messages about equality, about saving the planet, and thinking responsibility and care. And those tones somehow connected with female world, and at the same time diminished as not so important as making money and I don't know, making innovations, whatever. This is a big deal of biopolitics. Like some kind of expressions are less important than others, and those expressions are about emotions and about body and the state of the body. So all about well-being actually, and being connected and being loved and being safe, and so on. This is the message we are somehow are not able to express well because of the misogyny that is blurring this message as not important enough. And this, I think, talking about the voice and thinking about the voice, I don't know how to change it. I will. You know what Margaret Thatcher did? She took the voice lessons to sound as a man, but we don't want it anymore. I think like we don't want to mimic another expression to what to give this message that we want to give. We need to find our own space and air for it. So. I don't know, my my practice is focused around this and simply about being loud. I think I will like 5 seconds to tell what I'm doing. I'm loud. I'm really loud. Yes, and I can also see the impact of this expression on other people. That is, you know what I mean. Like it's someone who is courageous will go and scream. It breaks something. The silence. So I'm a silent breaker. Yeah.
What are the responses that you get in the moments of screaming? Because I think you told us that other people scream together with you also, or do you scream alone? And then also, how do the people respond that you shout at? What are the reactions that you gain in the live situations?
Yes, that depends. I mean, in situation of the protest, it's kind of awaited, and it's like, let's say, I will scream and other people will scream with me. I make those meetings to warm up the people, to show them also how to scream safely, not to make yourself something wrong to your apparatus, because it's easy, we all know. So yeah, the reactions are, let's say, the people who are not agreeing with the message, like, I don't know, stop the virus, fight the virus, not the women, like a month ago. Those who are not agreeing, they will look at you as an alien. Like, what is this person really like doing, shouting? Again, I think the hysterical etiquette is there always, but I like sometimes police people, how they look at me. They will like be like amazed, you know, like wow, this is like a weapon, because maybe they think like more like this, you know, like who is louder, who has more power. So the loudness is connected with power a lot. We can see that, and it's not only I want to be loud and have power, but let's say it's a social experiment. How it is to be a really loud woman on the street. I feel great.
It's so about this about this getting loud together. I did a workshop half a year ago with teenagers. They were all girls. Mm-hmm. And we were working on singing the same tone and filling in the space with sound, that it starts amplifying, and then we wanted to explode the space in sound, really amplify, and then it became a group scream. And I was really shocked that how difficult it was to put the voice outside of the throat, of the vocal cords, to put the voice outside of the body, to send it out, you know. And I think that these processes of dissociation, where there's like a process of, okay, we have to make one thing with one part of the body. This helps also it's a force to make the voice make more visible, to render the voice visible. Because if the face is doing the same as the voice, then it's stuck in it. But to make it visible, and I think that's the potential of the practice of Jule, for example. And I think that the screaming, no, am I right in a way? Because you looked at
yeah, potentially.
Potentially, we could. Yeah. I'm impressed about this idea. It's crazy that they interrupt our screams. That is difficult. That we are punished for putting emotion out because the voice has an effect, and it's so difficult to put out, and all the processes we have to do to render the voice visible and give it power again.
But I just spent the weekend with my the three children of my brother, and the middle child is 4 and she loves to scream. She wakes up, she screams, and she has so much fun. She's like, ah, like this. And it's so much fun. She has so much fun because she releases all of the energy, the pressure, she releases everything. And at the moment they live in a place where she can do this. It's not like silent, the neighbors might hear it. So it's really something also, there's such an effort to discipline us to become citizens, to sit silently in a classroom and let a teacher speak, and to be humble people with tight clothes who walk in uncomfortable things. So we are very disciplined bodies. And this whole screaming of teenagers or then screaming of adults versus the screaming desire of this person, or why, I don't know, why theater workshops are really freeing, because we can scream around, it's great. And at the same time, if we think that the larynx is a valve of really pressure release out, but also like holding, if the pressure from the outside is too big, we don't let it enter. Yeah, how can it be also something that is fragile and vulnerable, and it's for me very strong when Edgar, you talk about the screaming as a way of like, wake up, you know, like it feels like, I imagine it, I was never there, but as a rupture in the sonority of the moment. And then I have this wish that also the larynx can be heard as well, if it has a vulnerable state in its own sensuality, in its fine vibrations. And I really think that that is about which spaces are actually accessible to host certain kind of voices. Yeah, I think the screaming is absolutely necessary and really amazing as a like, and then yeah, I feel, especially in this very mediated time right now, a big desire to create spaces for possibilities of listening differently and of also feeling your body differently. Can you feel as heard? With a really gentle voice, can you feel as heard? And this is really, yeah, I feel that it would be, it's not about either or, no, but like how different spectrums fall differently into space. Yeah.
This is very, very strange, as with screaming, it's because it's so extreme that it will, for example, for me, it stays as an etiquette too, as an artist. I will play some concerts using very intimate sounds, like breathing, swallowing water, I don't know, body percussion, you know, all the sounds of the body. And the last one I played, someone approaches me and said, "I was waiting for you to scream." I was like once, it was very strange, like this stays. Like once you scream, they want you to scream, but yeah, sometimes I'm also more into listening and into vulnerability too. So I found it difficult, to be honest. Like there are so many etiquettes actually that can be done to you. This is also one of it. So can't bear it.
And now that we talk about listening and the taking into consideration the importance of the sensuality of the larynx and the inner spaces, I would like to ask you, how do you feel about how we listen and how we voice now that we are that we are at home, that we are separated through a mask, that we are suffocated by an overloaded internet, that we communicate with screens in between, where how do you think what listening processes can be are it's more important to, for example, listen more into the inside to then go out or
I can start with also like a new reflection that came to me a few days ago when I was thinking about you and joining the conference, and I was wearing a mask. I was wearing a mask, and I found this much easier. I sometimes talk to myself, even in the streets, or sing the songs. I think I re-educated myself already with years that I don't give about it. So I'm really doing this, and the mask actually helps you with that because keeps your mouth covered, so somehow gives this space, acousmatic space. You can be in the crowd and not be recognized that you are speaking or singing. The sound is coming, but you don't know from whom. Also, the mask is giving the impression of the presence of the, like it shows the vibration, becomes the membrane. When you speak with the mask, she's like vibrating with your breathing. So during the pandemics, I think we have more of these membranes consciousness. I think the intersections, like the inter intermatters, something that is between you and other person. And probably it's always there, not a mask, but a wall in your house. It's becoming a very powerful amplifying device of your neighbors. I hear my neighbors singing for the first time. I'm living in this house for 2 years and never had that. So I don't know what happened. Is the pandemic like really connecting people, or it's we are more in the house? I don't know. It's more silent. I don't know, but I can hear the sounds differently, I must say, and this is somehow, in one way, it's suffocating because we can't breathe in the mask and so on. But also, I can see some part of freedom in there. Yeah. What do you think?
It's contradictory because it's true that when you do like this, the sound you're using more your inner spaces, and then the sound starts amplifying. But
the question was about listening. Yeah, because I would answer from a totally different angle. I think at the moment a lot about how do we navigate through so many different emotional informations concerning the pandemic and what we should do, and how do we take decisions what to listen to. I really, it's super confusing in Germany. At least there's these conspiracy theories and super weird demonstrations going on at the moment. And I'm also having with some people in my life discussions about very, very uncomfortable discussions about these conspiracy theories. And I see how, because a lot of the personal meetings and exchanges don't happen anymore, and we receive a lot of our information through social media, through YouTube, through the different channels that we're used to even more, and we are a bit less maybe questioned by the people in our life because we don't see them personally. There's really, really upsetting and strange things as information's going around, and I see with the older generations especially that they just have also less tools to navigate through the credibility or not credibility. I think a lot about how can we listen in a critical way? How can we, who do we give attention? Because also people that we give attention to in this digital world, they profit from it. We use these platforms and the people, I really think about that it's extremely political how we navigate our attention, what we give attention, and how we manage to focus, and how we manage to still be in a discourse with people and to critically examine all of these informations, this overload, because in the subtitle of our talk, the suffocation of the voice, but for me, it's also the suffocation of the ear. I feel that there's an extreme suffocation of the ear because it's so emotional in a way, and the virus stays abstract to a lot of people because it's not directly visible and it's not directly feelable, and the really big tragedies, as with many news, even though it comes to the country that we are living in, but they are still the big tragedies, are often not in the realm of what we experience directly. So there is something about how attention is capital, how attention is economy, that I think about, and that I think we need to generate much more tools how to navigate in the social platforms and in even this kind of like, why are we live on YouTube? Why not anywhere else? What, like, if we really take it very, very seriously, this, I love this sentence from Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message. It's super classic, but now, right now, in this situation, if the medium is the message and it's my expanded anatomy, that I have this microphone and the screen and I have this digital devices. So I need to get to know much better this medium that we are using right now. If this is the most accessible public space that doesn't endanger other people at this moment, if this is the public space that is left, I have much too little knowledge about it. And I really want to understand how it conditions and its possibilities. We are now on Zoom and always the person who's speaking is yellow framed, for example, and then it guides your attention. You know, these very small things. I'm frontally speaking into a screen. I can watch you, but I can never really make any eye contact. Edgar's microphone is lower volume than Veza's microphone, so I hear you less. All of these things condition a lot what we can do in this conversation. And for me, the whole listening question is really a question about media and about, what is left of the public spaces that serve public discourse.
Here, especially now, we have such a cognitive dissonance because of the politicians rapping in cyberspace and YouTube. Like, they should do something in real life, like about the virus and the overwhelming number of sick people and not really prepared hospitals and so on, so on. There is a president of Poland rapping some kind of abstract hip hop rhymes. So this cognitive dissonance of virtual space, that is what is this country? What is this place? Because it's kind of a global, I don't know, neighborhood. We are sitting here like 3 different rooms, but it's Veza room even, I think it's called like this, or YouTube channel here, like a meeting room. So they are spaces, and it's true, as you said, the attention and listening of those spaces are listening to the spaces too. I mean, something that we can. No, it doesn't really let us forget about it, but we try not to focus on it. But what to do? I mean, how much Zoom is ethical? I don't know, to be honest. And I never gave my attention to it to see who is the owner and who. What is the deal with it? But maybe we should, as a practice.
There are open source alternatives to Zoom.
Okay, because Zoom is paid, yes?
Yeah.
Yes, I think also this state of overwhelm, we are in a moment in that state of overwhelm, and there is still the wish to reach out and to listening, not only in the sense of, okay, where does I concentrate, but to listen together, like how to relate to the others. So, to really engage with others. So then everything is so overwhelming, and then we take they are like the most popular media, which is the most powerful usually, are the things we reach first, because it's like the most common. And I agree that there is a necessity to really think ethically about it. But there is, on the other hand, also like a speed that sometimes I don't know, we were talking about an emotion. You're talking about an emotion that comes out through the language. And there is a speed on it, and that it's really, for me, it's incredible. The necessity we still have to reach out and say something. But I think conversing and hearing is different. The more voices we hear, the better, because I think one of the problems of the voice, very often when you have it as a subject matter, the voice is often seen with language, or the voice is seen as an object. But the beauty of the voice is like it's many contradictory things, but it's also a singular thing in relation to many things, or a singular thing that carries many voices. So I think that this plurality, like to train how to let different voices coexist, maybe this way of listening and negotiate information is trained in these times where we have to negotiate much more than in the past, you know, because we really have to reach out to get together to keep on doing the things, or maybe not. I don't know what you think about this.
This is a very new experience. Yeah.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, just this one phrase, that is very new experience.
Okay. Yeah, because I just wanted to add that there's an interview with Naomi Klein on Democracy Now! Where she calls the Screen New Deal. So screen like the computer.
I'm going to put it in the chat.
And she talks about how the Silicon Valley tech companies are basically also really thinking about a future of remote learning through Google Learning, telehealth, where you have contact with your doctor through the internet, all of these possibilities that are much more specific also than Zoom, but of course Zoom is also part of it. And if we think about that, these Google and Facebook owned companies are residing in Silicon Valley in the US, and really the profit goes to a certain national state, basically. That is really problematic. And at the end, she proposes, I hope I paraphrase her correctly, but she says something like, because the digital platforms are the new public spaces, we need to, they need to be also publicly owned, state governed, that they need to be governed by organs that actually want to or should or would give them into the service of the population and not of the profit of the owners from certain companies. And so this question, in a time where physical meetings, at the moment, we try to flatten the curve, we stay home, so on. It's like a paradox, but the answer would really be also that the state is controlling much more the spaces in the internet, which was already on the agenda, but never has been pushed through really in any, well, in some countries yet, but for different reasons. So whatever, yeah, so that there could be a control of that. If we really think about, because if I go back, maybe my practice has been next to the voice always to question what are the formats in the theater and in performance that we perform, and what is the theater stage as a political tool. And it has to do with creating a public sphere, of representing something to the public, to educate the public, which is totally old school, but we are still going, we feel as the public when we attend and we listen together. So something about listening, that I listen together with people, these people are giggling, this person hates it, the person behind me is sleeping, and I love it, you know? So listening together is just so different than listening in front of the computer. And if I think that in many countries, public space is provided by the state, and this might be the new public space that goes through the voice, the body cut off from here, but the voice is still present, the voice is still active, the voice is informative, the voice wants to convey a lot of informations. How much space is there for non-information voice, for non-linguistic voice, I'm not sure, but there is something about society and let's say democracy also depending a bit on how the anatomy of these public spaces is made, and yeah.
And this is how the new forms of protest are going to appear, like I don't know, they still evolving, like you saw what we did here in Warsaw. So that was kind of a try to create this public protest without leaving your house. Still, I don't know if I told you what happened later. After we edited like hundreds of voices together, and my friend was playing this piece out of her window, and the police came like in 30 seconds. So probably this was such a strong sound mark that probably they had an idea there is an illegal gathering or something.
It's like an acousmatic demonstration in this sense. That's amazing, actually. Yeah.
Yes, this was said in the beginning. Like, please download the piece and play it through your with your car or with just a portable USB speaker or through your window. And many people did actually, and they always having problems because of that. So there is, I think, especially here in Poland, when we really struggle with the government who wants to minimalize, and it's speaking openly about it, how they want democracy to look like, and it's very nationalistic vision, let's say, of a system. This public space is limited very much from. For years already being on the streets, there was never be such a freedom to protest and to gather. I mean, we are very closely watched and surveilled. I don't know how about now. I was thinking actually when I was posting this voice polyphonic protest piece. If I should put a tag on Facebook of my friends, because maybe they want to be anonymous. And there's also another question of leaving a trace in internet and leaving the trace. Yeah, you go to the mask and when someone is a professor of Academy of Art, can have problems actually, because we are living in censorship, and yeah, actually my work 1 week ago was censored, and it's official. Like I used the word anti-fascist in the narration, in the narrative, and it's about actually it's about trees and fungus. It's a sort of cooperation of trees and fungus, and it's a story about how you can work better with wooden objects, not to give them back to the circle of nature. And there is a one fragment saying anti-fascist movements, and that's it. The work is it's censored and it cannot go to the public. And I don't know. It's also came because of pandemic, because the exhibition itself was opened for everyone, but then the museum wanted to make audio guide. So because of the pandemic, the organizers heard for the first time that there is some anti-fascist idea inside. So amazing too. Yeah.
I'm still very hooked in this the internet, the interface being like the new public space. Of course, this never came to me, and a public space that is so where we only appear like in a frame in the private, and how because of when a political situation becomes so censoring, so dangerous, like in Poland, like how care starts, and yeah. How we act together. We need to be more careful what we publish in the net and so on. With this, I would like because we have been talking for almost an hour, and I would like to talk a little bit more and then to open some questions, because maybe there are people watching the live stream that they have questions. And I would like, before we go to talk about a bit about when we are in this situation, like in a situation of crisis, and there's like this need I was talking about. Oh, we have to reach out, we have to connect, we have to talk, we have to speak. On the one hand, we have this need, but on the other hand, we also have a shock moment. So I would like that we talk maybe together. What do you think about the value of silence, remaining silent, or the value of voicing? For you personally, like also through the experience. I know it's a difficult question, but it's there, you know. It goes through a wave, you know. Sometimes I don't know, in the beginning when the internet exploded with information, like I also have to put out a statement, but I didn't know how to react to it. And I was then also thinking, oh my God, I'm so busy with the voice and how to communicate something that is uncommunicable and how to relate to others. And I still don't have a solution how to work with it in this situation. Maybe we are too much in the shock to think about it.
I could say a story that I met 1 year ago, an activist from the late 80s from the GDR. And he was a anti-nuclear warfare activist who was highly surveilled by the Stasi, and his life got boycotted in all of the ways that was usual in the GDR. And I did a research about uranium mining in the area where my father comes from on the Czech border. And I asked him a lot of questions about the past and about his experiences. It was a very old man, very interesting language, his physician, and he said, why do you dig in the past? You need to look now about the Stasi would have dreamt of these possibilities that surveillance organs have in this time right now, because people give their information. We want to be heard. We want to give out statements. We want to be present. We want to, we are artists. We are, yeah, we want to our voice to be heard. We take these compromises, even though we don't agree with Facebook. We use it in order to give our messages and so on. And so he told me, and that was before the Corona situation, you need to look at the media and the surveillance politics now, because the Stasi would have dreamt about it. And this really stayed with me. It really deeply, deeply touched me. And I think about it a lot right now again, about this old man who is right. And I guess that the German and the Polish experience are very different in this regards. But speaking from here, are the freedom of speech is definitely there. There's some laws against hate speech, but they are also done in a way sometimes where it's also not very consequent, always right-wing leaning decisions. And speech in its mass, does it really count? Does it, and what would silence as a gesture be? Is it an active presence of silence? Is it really an absence? Is it a refusal to play a certain game? Or do you cancel yourself out? It's things that we need to find out, but I really think that we talked about, I was sending you the link of the Lawrence Abu Hamdan lecture where he talks about practice in Islam of practicing silence, of refusing to say the truth in a moment that would be dangerous for you. And it's a very interesting political resistance as well. Historically, at least in Europe, yeah, we have these emotional images of protest with many people on the streets, gathering, loud. And I think, of course, it works. It bonds people, but also they are historic images, and there needs to be slight, like, registers that we change in a way. Silence. Yeah, and so for me, it has more to do with hearing, maybe. Like, questions about hearing bring me further at the moment than questions about voicing. The question about the activity, but also like, how can I hear? How can I, what do I want to hear? What is my maybe politics of hearing? Yeah, something like this.
I think there are many different ways also of hearing, and sometimes the way we hear it really limit to just hearing, but it's not just obeying or reacting, but sometimes it's also like expanding, like feeling more, being able, no? I think that hearing, also to think in more complex matters, what hearing can be, you know, not only the physiological, but also like the personal, interpersonal, also on a sociological level or political level.
Yeah, and in that sense also, like, the social engagement that we train through social interaction. And if we have now a lot of children getting lectures online, like this whole thing of like, you train something through social interaction, and it's already great that we can see each other and hear each other, but it's really important for the brain development also of adults. So
True that, but as you said, Veza, hearing can be also considered as very relational. I think it was something in the very beginning said, like, and of course, with neurobiology, we can go to the relation of mother and child, because this is the first listening session of your life. You hear the heart, blood pressure, but then the voice of your mother, and you start recognizing the voice of your mother, and you start to be somehow connected through the voice. And this is probably the first real, like, recognizable thing in your life. This is the voice calling you, and then you can reply with the voice. So someone said also this is the basis of democracy. That is a voice of a person directed to other people. So, and your kind of readiness to lend your ears to the idea. But speaking about remaining silent, in my case, it's very very specific now, because I observed myself last month, and I must tell you that I will rather not create new things and like new songs or new productions. I work in the radio, and I'm very much committed into the community radio. And I will do twice in a week some kind of a news selection. And I think I chose it as a main activity now, to somehow help my people go through the pandemic gigantic information zone that is so much tragic information, and so much fake news, and so much of the information noise around, that I will go through and look for this news that maybe have some potential of hope and potential of, I don't know, make you interested or relaxed or touched, but these are very, very selected, filtered things, and they are not easy sometimes. Of course, they always relate to the pandemic, to our current state. And I'm not silent, really, because I will read those news, but I feel it somehow that this is a form of silence. not adding another layer, I don't know, layer to this, also a mass of production.
Mm.
So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
in a way. Do we still have time? It's like 1 hour is not enough.
We have to talk about, maybe we have to meet again and keep on talking about many other things. I would like to ask you all these articles you have been naming, if you could send me the link, and I would publish it in the YouTube chat because they are asking. And I invite everyone now to make questions and to keep the conversation more open with you. There's already one question I'm going to read to you. The question is, thank you for this. My question is how to navigate shock and the responsibility of the artist, especially in the face of a global pandemic. It's a big question.
Totally.
Yeah.
We have the shock, we have the responsibility as artists in the face of a global pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Well, I actually, yeah, I just finished reading a book about the polyvagal theory, and it's about the different states of the nervous system. And one of the states that is classically a response to trauma, but not only, like the state of shock, of freeze, of you don't know, you feel paralyzed, you feel pacified by a situation. That is really like a bodily state that your nervous system can shut down. And so, for example, no, there's other like states, and this person was totally against medication and really against the classical forms of old school therapy, and really recommended actually movement, singing, and theater. Really practices art maybe also as a practice to experience the self, to experience this body in this space with these sensations that provoke these feelings, and that don't need to directly go into representation and applause from an audience, but into a practice of being, that it's not a given that we are, especially in this online practices that we all have now, that basically art as a practice can be a very, very good tool to navigate through the own feelings of shock, and to again be able to take decisions, make the new move, feel an impulse to change something small, and to even be able to value it. Only breathing techniques can already change so much our ability to navigate through shock, and through and singing as well. Like, yeah, that's the interesting thing about this virus, is that the entrance is the mouth, the throat, the lung, our breathing, and they are like vulnerable gateways, and where it's also fought away, where our body is fighting against the virus. And at the same time, here lies a big power also to get in touch with our nervous system in order to experience our bodies, and to calm down the nervous system. For example, I'm more in a fight and flight mode all the time. I'm constantly like this, you know, like I need to do stuff. And so yeah, in my life it really helps me that I have these tools through my artistic education. And for me, it's at the moment less maybe about producing and representing, but more about shaping practices for this moment. Yeah.
This is very beautiful what you said, because it sounds to me like this art as a practice, but also through surviving, you know, like you talk about nervous system and breathing, and they are so essential things, like essential to the bone. Like there is nothing much more essential than breathing and receiving impulses. But I don't know, here it's very much connected with new age practices, you know, like I will go and run some workshops or give some lessons, and always feel a little bit under pressure of the maybe the language we use. It's a little bit maybe it's something to work on it. Like you about this book, I started reading it too, and I think it's amazing because you can start to be more precise and to connect so many levels, like artistic expression, but also a knowledge about the body, about the organism, that it's so important to have. And just to add something from me, I think, but it's also very much connected with what you said. I would say art is also a way to deal, expose, embrace vulnerability. And I will call my practice when I work with people, I will never want to achieve a kind of mastery or the model of mastery, or I mean, of course, you are free to work on the technique and shape your tools and abilities, but the first thing is it's there is no perfection. There is no because I see from the people I work with, there is a big pressure of good voices and bad voices, like beautiful singing and bad singing. You know, like there is nothing like a bad singing really, and we can discuss what we like, but there should be more of open, like how to say. To aloneness of this intuitive and free expression, vocal expression. And I think this is a beautiful mission to work on, and I think we are doing it, actually, working with showing it. My friend from Lyon, Marie Brugerol, she's a researcher in performance. She called this method incoativity. So something not done, something that just started. So we are saying like, hello, I don't know where I'm going, but let's go there together. So we are kind of, we have some tools, we have some knowledge, we have some maps, but still we go to unknown direction. And during that process, we show a lot of vulnerability. And I think being an artist, it's all about dealing with those vulnerabilities. And maybe this is the way also to open the dialogue about it, like, and to make a place in public space for vulnerability, and this part of ethics.
That's beautiful. Yeah,
that's very important, and acknowledge these vulnerabilities. We have here another question also, that if you could share some of the tools and practices for discoveries of presence, calming, function, healing, and do you consider these artistic practices if they are never becoming visible?
Oh, okay.
And there's a third question, but maybe I read you again, because this person made like 3 big questions, and maybe we can navigate through them. Would you share some of the tools or practices for calming, function, and healing? Do you consider these artistic practices if they are never becoming visible? And then the third one, and or if we all do these practices and they don't need to become visible, how do we monetize or not valorize, negotiate, express, engage, perform, or not? So we have like
Oh my
what
God.
happened? It's very big and and political.
I need to take notes.
Maybe we keep it with the practice, and then we talk a little bit about visibility, invisibility, and then about the economical aspect briefly.
Mm-hmm.
No, I have this kind of idea to start from the end, actually.
Let's start from the end.
What do you think?
I think that's amazing.
Because practices is something that we probably with Jule we have a lot to talk about, and the monetizing. I don't know. I think it's a kind of universal situation with people who will deal with like socially engaged art and with some such subtle practices as breathing, as dance. I don't know how it's with you, Jule, but I think dancing world it's something completely different than strictly singing or musical world. I think it's still the question about how is the economic aspect. Yeah, it's something like you cannot, it's not a product, you can't really sell it. I mean, some people try and they are institutes for this, for that. There is like a mindfulness movement really developed. I will say it's completely taken from another sources, but let's do not discuss it. I felt for many years like banned by my own self, like to take money for like guiding someone of like singing and breathing or achieving some relaxation or improvising. I was for many years convincing myself that this is kind of a good I share, you know, like kind of open source thinking. But later on, it happens like, you know, I'm doing what I'm loving and what I say and so on. So this is my job. So it's somehow difficult question. Like when you protest, I spent 2 years on the street, like, and I felt for one day this is full-time job, but I'm paid. And of course, if I would be paid for protesting, it will be not a real protest anymore. But somehow, you know, you need an income to live. So I think this is changing a lot. What I observe now from the curatorial programs, there is more and more focus for public programs, for like some workshops and symposiums, and to work with people to show those practices and to give people the experience that is not only consuming our art, but also more the consciousness of the body, of the voice, of the human construction, of the relationship. So I think this is changing. That much more focus is put on those values and skills. But let's see.
Mm-hmm. I'm really fascinated with all of these methods that you also didn't namely mention, but their existence and how they also all try to claim authority over the topic of breathing, the topic of voice, and how they have different, and body, of course, and of dance technique, and how they are in a competition, in an economic competition with each other about the truth of the body and so on. And I find it super interesting to have a peek into all of them, to see how my body is changing through the idea behind every method. And what I find deeply interesting is the ideas of a body and how the idea I have of my body changes what my body is. And through these various practices and how you can through these practices, how your body is changing and how they also don't exclude each other. I find to ask questions about what the body is through practice very eye-opening and super artistic, because yes, I can do yoga every day, and there's a way where I can execute the same form every day, and I just execute and I get really, really strong. Or I also ask myself questions around this practice. One of my favorite questions is, does the voice belong to my body, or is the voice its own thing the moment it's releasing from the body in its production, in its moment of production? So this question I can work on for 10 years, I think. And like a real quest in this way. And yeah, so for me, artistic and practice are not two different things. I think that it's really, really important to navigate with different practices and finding practices and really doing them outside of workshops and finding ways of proposing these what is the body questions that are really essential now in this really I don't know, that I'm looking at you in 3 different screens and I always do this. Yeah, it's doing something with my body. It's also a practice, and I can continue all of my let's say somatic practices or knowledge in any field of experience. And about monetizing, we are so dependent on how institutions organize themselves. So probably there will be a lot of cultural cuts now. Maybe culture will be differently organized. I think it's not directly only our decision how we monetize our art, but also of what is possible, under which conditions. And we know that in every country probably of the world, it will change now. And we don't know where that goes. So I think, yeah, I think we should have no, let's not, we don't need to listen to curators, but they are the people who could give different answers. Yeah.
Totally. And would you like to provide also like one task? For example, you know, I've spent most of the time now making a list of tasks beyond measure, because I couldn't work, but I could practice, and I missed training so much that I had to like review also all my voice practices. And I call them tasks beyond measure because they are so overwhelming, no, because they allow me to find new, that the voice finds itself new measures. And for example, I think that it's very empowering to feel in, like really like if you would be drawing, feeling body, feeling sound from your feet till your skull inside of your body, like really feeling it with sound. Like you imagine you're singing, you are singing with the mouth, but you're singing with the feet, and then you feel in. And you have to keep on going, you keep on feeling until you are full of sound, or your imagination, full of an exhalation, and the same reversed in the room. And after you have done that, everything expands and you feel very powerful.
Nice. I will say the practices I'm connecting with during the pandemic, especially, are connected with abdominal and with the hips, with the lower, let's say, half of the body that is always forgotten, I think. And as Jule said, we see each other like part in those boxes. There is this syndrome in psychology called a lady, cat lady. So of Alexander Lowen, I think it's very popular practitioner of releasing the energies, and this holistic view of about health. So all the kind, I will say, of exercises that will connect you with your pelvis and with your vagina, especially with your hips, is priceless. I think I try to breathe in that really simple way, like just directing the breath to my ass, or my the place that the spine is finishing, and it's always a lot of tension there, and it's always a lot of memories there, and so on, so on. So and the tension is coming all the time. So somehow it's becoming a question of like washing your hands. Is the same with this enormous amount of tension that is coming to your body. It's like sometimes we need to wash it a little bit, and even I think like really simple intuitive breathing, imagining this wave from up down and down up, and I don't know, I don't have any special exercise really in my mind, just
it's all good, but you have given a lot of focus on that we're not so cut off. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like I was in Vienna, invited by Magda Hovanec for these resistors workshops, and we were peeling the apricot with our vaginas. So, like, imagine that. I mean, yeah, it's important focus. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And saying vagina loud. Yeah. In public space. Vagina!
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 Kipka in Polish. Kipka.
How?
Kipka.
Kipka.
Kipka!
That's a great screaming exercise as well. And, yeah, I will give a very simple thing that I'm doing at the moment myself, because I realized that I read the news and I feel that I'm sucking my own mouth. Wow. And I feel that the tension in my jaw is growing, and here also, and how my whole self is squeezing around the information. And so what I'm doing is really that I observe the relationship between my breathing and my jaw while I watch the news. Wow. And I'm reading the news. That's it, that I'm still here. That it's not the news that take over the whole space. I'm here, and my jaw and my breathing are there while I'm receiving the whatever informations that connect me to the outside sphere of the house. And yeah, I'm still working on it. I really need to do this, because after I do it, I really feel like something very intense happening with my being. Yeah, if we think about that, like so many nervous system endings are in the jaw, and that they really influence the whole body, and how also the breathing is really conditioning what state we are in, that we can relax and even digest, or even like be the juicy selves that we want to be, so yeah.
I wonder if this is a reaction for certain news and certain information. It reminds me something that Antonio Damasio wrote. He was this neuroscientist. Pauline Oliveros from Deep Listening, she used to work with him at her late years. And he said something like, through observing your body reactions to outside impulses, you can impregnate for false authorities. Is like, I really like this sentence, to be impregnated for false authorities. So you can observe, you see Donald Trump, and you probably like your body reacts with something, and this is how you also know that this is not a person you can trust or listen to.
Yeah.
Like,
and yeah, another practice that I also have since 2 years is I don't watch anything about Donald Trump.
Me too. I believe.
And this is really what I mean with selecting what we listen to, because there's some things that are just trash.
Yeah.
And we don't need to be exposed to that, but we can like have people that we trust speaking about what happened with Trump. Yeah, but I really think that this is a kind of a it's a pollution information that is absolutely unnecessary. And that's not due to my German ignorance. That's really just due to the personality of a media figure who is threatening for the whole planet. And I prefer like, let's say, Amy Goodman talking about Donald Trump is much more valuable than having the primary source for my nervous system. Yeah.
Someone said from some satiric TV show, like, you should warn me before he appears on screen. So it should be like, warning, Donald Trump appears. So you can, I don't know, turn out your ears or eyes. Yeah. Good practice, though. Yeah.
And the last question, I'm gonna interfere you. Sorry, like I think it's an interesting question. It throws us back to the screaming practice and the screaming actions in Warsaw. This person asked, does the online world have less space for screaming? Thinking of the screaming in public space you talked about, the question comes by thinking that a listener can lower the volume, turn off, etc.
True that. It's it is becoming literally noise when you record it, and if you actually are able to record it, because it's not easy to record screaming. We know that. Once I recorded like many women together scream as an alarming siren. So it's like, they really like scream, and the interferences are too massive. So there is so much of air pressure hitting the microphone that is lost because it's not well recorded. The capacity of the microphone of the device is not really good, so it doesn't really show the scene and the power of it. And of course, it's symbolical. Like what we did just in April, it was, I think, kind of desperation and the gesture of throwing this voice in this public space, virtual public space anyway. I'm not sure if this is the way. Like we discussed with Veza and Jule the other day about the images of screaming person, the images of screaming woman, the image. Is it something you want to really watch or you want to participate in as a show or something? But in real life, it's also happening. I mean, the turning a microphone off here in Warsaw is really a practice that is happening. So I have a friend who is a fighter for tenants' rights, and she was silenced like this in the city hall, but she was able to, like, let's say, scream her message out to the judges, to the commission. I don't know if I answered something.
It's actually really interesting how in the internet you can avoid or you can escape, and how in the physical space the person could run away potentially, but there is something about being exposed to each other in this level that is really powerful and how in online interaction you can always swipe to the, what is it, right or left? I don't know.
In Tinder.
Yes, exactly. You know, you can just do that. You can just select uncomfortable phenomenon, and somehow this is the great thing, the cathartic thing, is that it's uncomfortable, and for these kind of experiences there are some of the best theater pieces. No, you hate them for 1 hour, and then maybe after the second hour you start to like it, and then after the 5th hour it's really brilliant, but you suffer through. No, there's a value in being exposed to something where you can't procrastinate, and there's something, for me it also goes for attention, to be exposed to the live screaming, or to these judges, they try to silence your microphone and then you scream it. It's amazing. It's really beautiful, and I really wonder what happens with these practices. Yeah.
But the scream is maybe the only act of the voice that works even in an image or in a word, because so often, like a statement in Facebook, like a little statement, it screams because of the tone. It's like the voice behind. Or we were talking last time about the posters they were putting. You put these posters in big letters, and it screams. And or if you take paintings, so they are like screams. It doesn't need to be literally. There are screams that you feel it in a different way. It's like a disturbance, something emotionally trying to escape, something that is holding it back towards the future in a way, you know, this escaping, this, I think. But of course it's of course if it's a different type of screaming, as the fact that I can have a public conversation, like someone can scream at me through a conversation here, or a politician can scream and I don't hear and I can leave. It's a different type of screaming. Yeah.
But also this disappointment, really, I remember this after this concert, it was really hitting me. Like, I came for you for a concert because I expected you to scream. So somehow it equals that I am provider of like some extreme emotions or extreme sound events. And I think you can do something strong and it's not screaming. Like I don't know. I did once a transmission with the radio transmitter from a vagina to a Catholic radio, and I didn't even give a sound from my mouth, but I stick the transmitter into my body, and it was transmitting a kind of aberration of the transmitter touching my skin. It's voila, it's all. But for me, I think it was much more loud piece than the loudest possible voice. But still, I will always defend screaming. I think it's a very, very essential and very, very needed expression. And if you have occasion to do this, just do this. And many times, I think also on the workshops, some people were coming for me to teach them how to scream, but in heavy metal style, you know, like this, this kind of screaming. But this is a misunderstanding. No.
I think we are moving towards an end. It feels like a start for a conversation. Thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you.
I hope to hear you more more often. And today at 7, there will be another conversation open like this on improvisation. And don't forget, I'm gonna share, don't forget that we have, I share it in the chat in a minute, that we have a homepage where there is like a collection of different works on the relation between sound and body. And yes, have a beautiful afternoon.
Thank you.
Moving towards the evening, and let's see how we can keep on screaming. Yes, I'm for it.
Thanks for the conversation. Yeah.
Thank you. Good to see you and hear you. Ciao.
Pleasure.
Ciao, ciao. So I share still the homepage, and the rest of the articles that are missing are going to be shared later. Thank you so much. Bye.